So I took a chance. I took the opportunity to watch the CNN town hall from last night while I was eating. The Trump section. This is my comment on that. See, this is a good example of what Trump is just. The idea of spending less money on war is something that's going to swing more than a few Democrats on its own. This is realigning even, when you line it up with his views on trade. I don't like this guy. But I'm having a hard time finding reasons why I should like him less than I like Hillary. But he continually demonstrates that he's absolutely clueless about what's going on. There's only two ways you can parse his response on Ukraine. The first is that he's just totally clueless and in desperate need of a major briefing. And the second is that he's some kind of Russian spy. I'm not exaggerating. And while there's actually a few pieces of circumstantial evidence leaning towards two, quite a few, Russian spies don't get primetime TV spots. They end up, isolated like Alex Jones. Okay, so it's far more likely that he just hasn't the faintest clue, or at least that's the rational analysis. Yet, as clueless as he may be, that doesn't change the fact that this is so remarkably refreshing. I have compared him to Inspector Gadget more than once. I'm about as far left as you get. But if you're going to run an election candidate with one candidate that wants to ramp down NATO and pull out of NAFTA, and another that's a liberal interventionist that was involved in writing the TPP, I wouldn't be much of a leftist if I picked the latter, would I? I do want to be clear, I'm not advocating voting for Trump. I'm actually advocating not voting. Neither one of these candidates is acceptable. But, xenophobic trash aside, Trump may honestly be the more left-wing candidate. Now, I want to take a step back on that, okay? The big horrible thing about Trump is that, he's saying, Mexicans are rapists and, they're getting over the border and all this kind of stuff. But if you listen to Hillary Clinton, what she's saying is that she wants to deport criminals. They're actually saying exactly the same thing on this topic. The media is just presenting it to you in a different way. It's saying, Trump is a racist because he wants to stop rapists from entering, or he's a racist because he's saying that all the Mexicans that are coming over are rapists, right? But Hillary is not a racist when she says that she wants to deport illegals. I do believe that nobody is illegal. That get over the border, and doesn't want to deport the people that haven't committed crimes. Even though I don't actually believe her on that, I think that what is likely is that Clinton will carry on the the systematic arrests and rounding up process that's happening right now. And that, in fact, in this town hall, a little bit later, she acknowledges is happening. She herself talks about how there is currently an operation in place to go around and round up people and kick them out of the country, which is exactly what Trump is being attacked for. It's right to look at Trump's policies and say these are wrong. But it's wrong to say that Hillary Clinton is any different. If the election is about xenophobia, then Hillary Clinton is every bit as racist as Donald Trump is, okay? And that's going to be really hard to get through to people because you're overturning all of this brainwashing, okay? This massive, it's not just a massive media push against Trump, it's decades of media narrative and framing, okay? But when you actually look at their policies, they're identical. They're both really xenophobic. They're both really racist. They're both really wrong. Okay, and that's the actual truth of it. They are both saying the same thing. They're both saying they want to deport, you know, illegals that are criminals. They just say it in slightly different ways, and the media reports it completely differently because that's what the media does, right? So Hillary then comes on with Anderson Cooper. The Trump part was with um, Wolf Blitzer. I'd rather see Wolf Blitzer interview the Democratic candidates. I don't like Anderson Cooper. I think he's a slime ball. Um, he's he's presented often as a liberal, which is absurd. um, he's just about the most obvious example of an establishment Republican that I could imagine. Right? So they get him on there, and I mean, he's not. I've seen him like the last town hall. He was better tonight than he was before, but it's I. As soon as you see this, you know that it's going to be bad, um, and I mean bad for the anti-Clinton people. It's great for Clinton because he will lob softballs at her. He will do anything of any um, substance, and that's exactly what we got. You knew it as soon as you saw it was Anderson Cooper. He ran an essentially issueless interview, except the xenophobia issue, which I've mentioned is a straw man. Okay, I think that's the first time I've actually said it's a straw man, but it is a straw man. Okay, with Clinton and Cooper specifically, you know the interview was actually probably scripted. So the attempt is to zero in on a specific issue. It's not an accident that they only talked about one thing of any substance. Right, so I don't think that's going to work. Okay, to begin with, I don't think that Hillary has nearly the street cred that she thinks she does on minority rights, and I've explained that. But more importantly, it's just not what people are going to want the election to be about. Nobody wants to have an election about illegal immigrants, okay? And that's not what Trump's campaign is about. What Trump's campaign is about is NAFTA. It's about trade, okay? And I've been over this already, though. So you can imagine how this is going to work, right? So cue the scary music, build up the drama. It's easy, right? Here's your case study. Look at the 2006 Canadian election. The Liberals tried this tactic and failed badly. Okay? It was under Paul Martin. They tried to paint Stephen Harper as an extreme right-wing nutcase that was going to bring in a police state and get universal health care. They were right. It's just that it would have taken him 30 years to do it because he was a very methodical incrementalist. One of the issues in the 2015 election was a espionage bill that Harper had brought in that was, very unpopular among civil rights people. It was directly predicted by the election rhetoric in 2006, but it took him 9 years to get there, and it would have taken him another 9 years to look at, getting health care, and another 9 years for there to be, soldiers on the streets with guns, which is what the ad pointed out. Okay, and we did get rid of him after 9 years, meaning that he didn't have 30 years to do it, but he had made a lot of steps towards applying these sorts of things that were pushed down in the advertisement. But the tactic backfired. Stephen Harper did win in 2006, and he was Prime Minister of Canada until 2015. And the reason it backfired is because people did not believe it. Okay, it didn't quietly backfire. It loudly backfired. Okay, it was a big thing. People that would have normally voted for Liberals got really angry that they were pushing down what they saw as a scaremongering advertising campaign. And, normally reliable Liberals voted for the Conservative Party out of solidarity in what they saw as a ruling party that had gotten out of control. Now, while Trump is, he's far more obnoxious than Harper, he's also considerably to the left of Harper, and far less of an actual threat. And I'm serious when I say that, okay? It didn't work in Canada with a Harper that was actually a very scary right-wing demagogue, even if he was able to kind of couch it a little bit. Okay? Trump sounds a lot more scary than he actually is, but it's hard to see how. I mean, if you're going to look at the case study, that's the difference, right? Harper was very good at making himself seem less scary than he is. Trump is, if you want to say he's very good at this, he is very good at making himself seem a lot more scary than he is, right? So that's it. If we walk down this path, we are going to be repeating that, but that is the variable that's changed, right? When Martin went after Harper, he was dealing with an opponent that was very good at making himself seem less scary. So when he would say things, even if they were accurate, it wouldn't stick. The other hand is that Trump is very good at making himself seem a lot more scary than he actually is. Is it going to stick? I don't think so. And I don't think it is, because I think that enough people will be able to analyze the situation well enough. There's other things to throw in. Canada has a three-party system, and even with the brutal ads, another huge factor in 2006 was that the ruling centrist Liberals had bled almost 20% to the further left NDP, and that had they not bled all of that support, the actual truth, I think, if you compare the 2006 election to the 2000 election, Stephen Harper actually had less votes in 2006 than he did in 2000, but the Liberals had a lot less because the NDP had a lot more, right? So there's those other factors as well. Okay, but it didn't work in galvanizing voter turnout or voters. It actually split them up. Okay, it may not have pushed more people towards Harper, but it did push more people towards the third party. Or it might not have pushed out a statistically large amount of people, even though it was a big deal, and there were people that did. But there was also that third party, right? It's this is a complicated thing. I can't really get into all the subtleties of it I'm at 12 minutes now, but I guess I've been talking about this for 5 minutes. In a very short YouTube comment read on a $50 camera, but it is a case study that's worth looking at, and I think that the lesson is that if you think you can win an election by making your opponent look scary, that's something you might want to think twice about. Okay, because Trump really isn't this. If Trump is an extremist, okay, he's not a far left. He's not a far right extremist. He's a far left extremist, and that's becoming more clear. Okay. So you kind of have to expect the same kind of reaction where people are going to look at this and say this doesn't add up, right? You want to throw all these accusations at them. They better be real, or they're not going to stick. Okay, and it's especially true in a country where the knocks on the door are already commonplace under a Democratic president. It's hard from a credibility standpoint, for Hillary Clinton to stand there after 8 years of mass deportations under Barack Obama and claim that this other guy is going to be brutal on this issue, when she's representing continuity on something that is exactly what she's trying to claim her opponent is. Okay. So this, I know that the media across the spectrum is saying that this will be an easy win because of this. I don't think she has any credibility. Okay. Even if you concede that a lot of the accusations may have some merit, I think it's actually overblown. But even if you concede that point, she doesn't have the credibility herself to claim that she's going to present something different, and that's what the media will probably not get. Okay, between now and November, the media will probably not realize that Hillary Clinton does not have any credibility as being a gay rights activist, as being a women's rights activist, as being an immigrants' rights activist. She has no credibility on any of these things. because the media has been pushing this for so long, partly as a consequence of so much right-wing propaganda. But in actual reality on the ground, if that was true, then Bernie wouldn't be getting 45% of the vote pretty much everywhere where it's an issue, right? She can win in the South where everybody's conservative anyways. But in liberal states, she's barely winning, and as I've stated repeatedly, it's obviously that she's barely winning because she's cheating, right? So she doesn't want to, and I think she knows that, so she doesn't want to do that, okay? Instead, she just wants to um, make it about this simple, this guy's scary, this guy's a fascist kind of narrative, right? And if she does have to take him on these issues, what she's going to realize, or what I think she does realize, and what voters are going to realize, is that she's consistently to the right of Trump on issue after issue. Trump is the further left option. It's not a clean flip, of course, right? There's some things where Hillary is still on the left of Trump, like her tax plan, her health care plan. As bad as Hillary's, court nominees will likely be, they'll probably be better than Trump's, and etc. Right? So I mean, like, hate it for being regressive all you want, but Obamacare will probably win her some votes. Okay. But if you looked at it in the broader scheme of things, what that really, because it's not just a couple of things where Trump is to her left. It's like a lot of things where Trump is to her left. So if it was like one or two things, maybe we could salvage it. But we're not. I don't think that we're gonna. If it ends up being Trump versus Clinton, I don't think as it's going to be. I don't think we're going to be able to walk out of this election with a left-right split as it exists intact. Okay, you're not just looking at, and it's not just going to flip either. You're looking at like a total reconfiguration. You're going to get, on the one hand, you're going to get like working class, voters voting for the Republicans all of a sudden, right? And they're going to be doing it based on, it's going to be isolationist and xenophobic, but it's also going to be in favor of big government expenditure, right? So you're going to have people that are voting against, immigration, but in favor of stimulus. Okay? And then you're going to end up with this like middle of the road moderate conservative vote that thinks Hillary will be better on security. They think that she'll be better on war. She'll keep you safe. And she'll be better on like the constitutional rule of law issues, right? Which is supposed to be the Ted Cruz demographic. So you'll end up with Hillary pulling all these moderate Republicans in, and perhaps even a lot of these constitutional style Republicans in, right? Along with Trump pulling all of these working class voters in. That's not a flip. That's a total break, right? That's like the entire spectrum smashed with a hammer, right? And it's very hard to predict, okay, if that happens, where it's going to be 4 years from now. 4 years from now, if that happens, we could be voting for the Republicans to stop Clinton's war, okay? And I'm not joking. Clinton comes in, you end up with this anti-war movement, and it's the Republicans that are pushing the anti-war movement because the whole spectrum's been smashed. And they can't get any of their traditional support because it's all moved to Clinton because of Trump. And conversely, Clinton is such a horrible, massive job losses due to the TPP and all these other sorts of things. All those voters move over to the Republicans. And so you end up with Bernie Sanders running for the Republicans against Hillary Clinton. Okay? Or it could even flip the other way, where you end up with, some loony right Democrats running against Hillary in her own party. Sorry, that came out of nowhere, but it was also a longer rant, and I was kind of expecting it. I didn't get any flashing light or anything, but the next camera I get will have to have something like that. But I do know that I was talking about. I may not pick up my exact train of thought, but I was just pointing out that this is, if we get Trump versus Clinton, because the reconfiguration is so dramatic, it's completely unpredictable how the pieces might put themselves back together in 4 years. Um, and it might be in ways that completely blow people's mind and get people, all over the place. Um, and on top of that, you also have to work in the fact that, Sanders might run as an independent. There might be other independents running as well. So, how about Sanders with the town hall? Well, he answered the questions excellently, but I don't see. See, what I'm trying to get across is that the questions were framed to prevent him from getting any kind of a bounce. He tried to get some talking points in, but we didn't get that stark contrast that we got in the Michigan debates. With what we saw in the town hall tonight, the Sanders choir will nod, but nobody's getting swayed. Sanders needs a real debate, and another one, and maybe a third one too, right? So then somebody responds to that. They say, refreshing. That should be a criteria when shopping for toothpaste, not the President of the United States. She says, don't underestimate the significance of the fact that he is absolutely clueless about what's going on. I say, okay, but I'd rather have a hapless fool with his heart in the right place than a calculated tyrannical monster. Trump will eventually be briefed, but Clinton will never get a heart. There's some Wizard of Oz imagery underlying this, too. One has no brain. The other has no heart. And that might be what we end up, moseying around here with this election as it comes up. It's the straw man versus the tin man. And I kind of like the idea of Trump being the straw man as well. One's looking for a brain, the other one's looking for a heart. Maybe we all need to get a little bit of courage.